maybe we should talk about, so this is Kundalini, we're going to talk about Kundalini and what we think it is. So
Yeah.
you were just saying about it being the energy at the base of the spine.
Yeah, so what is Kundalini? That's probably a good question to start with. So yeah, if you look at the literature, first of all, one thing that's interesting is you find it in sort of embedded in the different religions throughout the world, in the Vedas. I don't know much about these things, but you know, ancient Egypt. There's references to it everywhere. So which is helpful, and there are people. Like a lady called Anne Matthew, who does a really good job of just sort of collecting all the data and sort of building a framework around it, so that when you are going through this process, it can be reassuring, I think, to know that you're not going crazy, and you know, there's references to it everywhere, and so people like her, I think, are great because, and Bonnie Greenwell, who wrote some interesting books, because I think this at the beginnings of the Kundalini, the shift is so dramatic between the normal way you've been to this new reality that it can feel a little bit like going crazy. And unfortunately, people are with this energy are thought to be crazy a lot of the time, and you know, they'll be put away and locked up and given medication, and which is pretty tragic, really. So I think part of the inspiration to speak out about it is to provide that kind of information, and to bring Kundalini hopefully out of the dark and into the conversation.
Yeah, because it's actually, there's a lot of fear around it, I think, as well. So because in the literature, because of the association with mental illness, and because of the internet, and there's a lot of cases of people who, you know, who say that they can't contain the energy,
Right.
but I haven't come across anyone like that, and it seems quite a lot of it. A lot of people I meet just seem to have Kundalini experiences. Maybe not the awakening, so they have maybe every couple of years they have like the energetic stuff going on, a little bit of phenomenon, but it's different with the awakening, isn't it? Because it's continuous and it doesn't.
What do you think the difference is? Does someone have a little bit of that energy sort of just spilling up from time to time, rather than the full, you know, supposed snake coming up the spine? Or?
I don't know. I mean, like it's just one of those. It seems almost an arbitrary thing, but it's just like some people get lucid dreams and some people don't, and maybe in extreme stress people get those experiences, or extreme bliss or love, or something opens the door to it. But whatever it is, that is a bit maybe like the difference between having a glimpse of non-duality and actually the abiding state, because you can't make it happen, can you? But once this is started, it never completely goes. I don't know, your experience is ongoing.
Mine
anyway.
is completely ongoing and completely far out, like any time I lie down or sit still. I mean, people often say, people often say to me, "Oh, don't get stuck in the Kundalini phase. It's just Kundalini. You know, you've got to see consciousness or find consciousness." And I've even spoken to people online, and you know, they're very into their traditions, and like, "You must see consciousness now." And I'm like, I'm trying. You know, I can't see it. So I don't know, but they say that ultimately, traditionally, it's supposed to work its way up to the brain, and then there's a sort of, that's enlightenment or samadhi. But I've no idea. But no, it's certainly very volcanic, and I do have energy coming up to the brain. And I get little visions and things like that, a lot of third eye activity. Fascinating stuff. Do you know anything about samadhi? Do you feel like this energy eventually just sort of fills the body?
I think it's another one of those progress stories. That's my suspicion, because sometimes for me the energy gets really intense and there's a lot more samadhi states, there's a lot more visions and stuff, and then it goes down to a kind of baseline where it's just normal and then flags up again. And I know for me it tends to flag up during periods of stress or periods of excitement or newness, or it seems to like novelty, a bit like non-duality, that states of absorption, they increase during periods of novel inactivity, but not just normal inactivity. So
do you think it's a bit of a fantasy, that idea that it just brings about this permanent state of samadhi? Because that's the idea that you get, that you're just going to be sat by a tree, forever. to sort of...
I think there's that around Gopi Krishna, and also I think a lot of the books that were written about it as like a path to enlightenment. At least people like Bonnie Greenwell recognise it as it can happen after awakening, and it seems to be some sort of integration process, which makes sense to me. And
so that's interesting, isn't it? So Kundalini could sort of be said to bring about awakening eventually, but some people have an awakenings and then Kundalini. I don't know. It's an interesting, it's a chicken and egg sort of thing, isn't it? What came first, the sort of seeing of no self, or was it the Kundalini that? Was it the energy? I don't know.
I don't know if they're related. Like, I think it's the same energy. So
yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Because my second Kundalini awakening happened 5.5 years, I think, after my awakening in non-dual seeing, which is a abiding state. So I just thought that was it, and I was of the opinion that things like Kundalini are trivial and do not matter. So I was very dismissive of it, and I'm not at all now, because it's just blown my mind like it has done. I think it's blowing yours, because so.
Yeah, completely. And so you had a second one that came down. You had one that came up from the spine, and the second one, was that a few years after the first one?
Yeah, it was a few years after, but it was more of a light one, so it's much more. I mean, there were inner signs. There were all sorts of different phenomena, but the main thing was waking up every night. And, if I woke up from sleep, I'd be waking up and seeing planets or seeing these beautiful skyscapes, dreams with no kind of content, but just dreams, and then I started to get other dimension kind of experiences, but all seemed to be sort of. There was a lot of psychological integration that seemed to be sometimes directly related to the experiences and sometimes not, but it just seems to be ongoing. I don't know about you and your well, I do know about you and your integration. Maybe you'd want to say a little bit about what's going on for you with the healing. And
well, the healing is mind-blowing. That's one thing. That's one of the most surprising aspects of it. The main healing that's been happening, I have really severe acid reflux, and that comes from just. Well, I don't know where it comes from, but I've spent years just taking sort of over-the-counter drugs and omeprazole and just trying to keep the acid down, and just I've had so much burning in my chest, in my esophagus. I used to spend nights, and when it was so bad, the pills didn't do anything. I would just lie in bed, and my esophagus would like contract as the acid would come up, almost like the muscle was trying to get away from it, and I would just sit there kind of going like it was extraordinarily severe. And I think I kind of got used to it after a while. And eventually I stopped taking the over-the-counter stuff and started taking herbal things, and it did improve slowly over time, but this energy is so intent on healing it. And what it usually does during the mudra kriya, what do you call this, it just puts my hands like that and it tightens everything up like it's trying to, I don't know what it's doing, to be honest, but the healing has been extraordinary. Sometimes I sleep really well. I wasn't able to sleep on one side before. Now I can, or certain positions were uncomfortable, and now I just pass out. It's literally no longer. It's still there, because it's just been years of systematic, damage. But the difference has been incredible. And the other thing is my sciatica. When I walked this pilgrimage through Spain, I developed this. After years of touring, and I was touring as an actor in a theatre company, and I was just lifting boxes and heavy set and things like that, and my lower back was always a bit of a mess. So I developed this sciatica, and I walked with a limp for like 9 months. It was really severe, and then through yoga and stuff like that, it started to heal. But what happens now, when I lie down, I can literally feel the nerve like just kind of unhooking itself, and then my legs will go up in the air, and they'll kind of do stuff like that, or they'll just spread out into some sort of just spontaneous yoga, and I'm feeling throbbing a little bit, and it's just sending so much energy into those areas where there's issues, And the third one, I suppose, was my teeth. I had wisdom teeth coming through recently, and the dentist said that they were really close to the nerve, and it could be really dangerous. He said if they don't grow correctly, then the operation was there's a high probability of my losing sensitivity over both my cheeks and my jaws. I kind of be like that. And this energy, just right from the beginning, sending so much energy into my teeth that I could feel them move, like the same thing that the brace would do.
Wow.
And the Kriya would take my finger, put it into my mouth. I got this footage of this as well. And just at one time, it just pulled on my wisdom teeth. It went. And so you really have to trust this energy, and that's an interesting one as well, because it will do some. You just don't know what he's doing, you know. And sometimes, you know, you have these moments where, like, am I just possessed by some evil force that's trying to kill me? You know, I've had moments where it's grabbed my throat, and sometimes it's stopped my breathing, like it will put my hand on my nose. It does this a lot, so I'll be going through these I'll do like the head soaring, and then it comes down and it just blocks my nose. And sometimes it puts my hand over my mouth for a long time, and sometimes for a long time, and I'm just like, just trust it, because you can always break away, and always, like, I don't feel like I'm, you know, it really is benevolent, but you really do have to trust it, and it's been doing this kind of thing for a while. I didn't know why, but it was just like bashing my jaw. Again, I've got footage of this, just like that, really hard, like dang, 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 and again, it's to do with my teeth. I think it's just kind of just realigning them, just setting them right somehow, and probably saving me from, you know, being paralyzed in my face. Quite, you know, so really dramatic, you know, dramatic healing, not just kind of like, because, you know, not just like a byproduct of the body relaxing, where you assume that energy will flow better because there's no seeking energy, so you chill out, and then the organism probably, you can assume, would work better. But the healing is dramatic. It has intention. It's like, I am going to heal this. It sends energy to certain areas with a drive that is really surprising.
So it seems like there's an element of consent there. I mean, there is that, because you can switch it off. I mean, you can. It seems like that, doesn't it? I mean, It's not like it's not like you need to go around and do kriyas all the time. But it's there as soon as you relax. That's it.
As soon as I relax, it's there, and it's you know, it's. If I work out, if I do a workout, sometimes it exacerbates it, because you're building up all this energy, and then you lie down and at the moment it's all happening in my neck, and like this top of the cranium, or the bottom of the cranium here, that interlocking bit between the neck is just getting so much cracking. I can hear the cracking, and it's like crack, crick, crunch, and my neck's getting really long, you know, and I'm starting to sort of walk around like, I think I've got taller. I mean, I haven't measured myself. I'm pretty sure I've stretched out. So yeah, it's just it's intense. Yeah, it's really intense.
And does it, like, we've covered this before, but like, do you notice particular energy in the actual chakras themselves?
I did at the beginning, yeah. The chakra thing became evident as being a real phenomena quite early on. One time I was lying in bed, and the energies just went all the way up and just knocked against my crown. I just kind of touched the crown, and I just had an image of all the chakras and the colours. It just stayed there for 2 seconds, but it was like the tree of life as represented in, you know, lots of these Kundalini books, you know. Yeah. And then I particularly noticed my throat chakra coming online, and I had really severe. That's another thing I've talked about, actually. It's a really severe tonsillitis. I've got a few health problems. Right. But yeah, tonsillitis. I did, you know, up to like 5 times a year, and I always considered getting them out, but I didn't really want to, because, you know, pulling something out of your body, I didn't like the idea of it. And I, touch wood, I had it once since the Kundalini started in October, quite shortly after the Kundalini activation. And I haven't had it since, and it's been a long time for me, so maybe it'll never come back, I hope. But anyway, when my throat chakra was coming online, I was sitting on my bed, and I used to see little pictures, and they'd give me an indication about what was going to happen next. And once I saw this slightly disturbing image of like utensils and implements, and, you know, little doctors' knives and things like that, and I was like, what's this about? And I was like, oh no, it's going to do something quite dramatic on me, you know, some deep healing. So I sat up on my bed, and my head just went back like that, and I think this happened a couple of times, and I was just like, so I was in this position. And again, that's where the trust comes in, because, you know, your automatic reaction is to be like, you know, what the hell is going on to here, you know, and that's a totally valid response.
Yeah.
But there was just, since the beginning, there was quite a lot of trust in this, I guess, because I read Bonnie Greenwell's book quite quickly after the initial symptoms, and I was and that really helped me kind of just ground myself, and then I did a lot of sound healing just online, you know, things that I used to think were woo-woo, just sort of frequency stuff, healing my solar plexus chakra and throat chakra, and I found that really worked. Like I play the music, or maybe it's just that I was focusing on that area, maybe there was an intention there, I don't know, but I think the music or the frequencies really helped. And so I had this a couple of times where my head would go back and I would just start making this sound like barely breathing, and a little bit of crying, you know, just kind of like almost like excuse me, I've got some footage of that.
Right.
So lots of very pronounced areas and centres in the body where I mean, they say that there's more than 7 chakras, and there's little ones in between and all that, but I haven't done my research. I know the names of them, but I'm not, you know, I haven't studied all these things in great detail, and I guess it's just because there's so much trust in this energy that I'm just quite happy to let it, whatever it's you know, it has full reign, you know, and the same with the mark, you know, it's doing this crazy thing, sawing a mark on my head that it comes and goes. And I'm just, you know, I feel self-conscious about it sometimes, but I'm just like, if there's an energy that's healing everything in my body, I'm quite happy for it to do what it wants, you know. It's like, you do what you got to do. If you want to put a mark on my head, put it on my head, you know. I'm not, you know, so I feel very blessed, you know.
I think it's interesting when this happens, when you have been so skeptical and you sort of rubbish. I mean, just because I rubbished the chakras. I mean, I just thought, what a load of nonsense.
Me too.
Because it seems quite silly on the face of it.
Oh,
and
totally.
But some of these experiences are so definitely the root chakra, or the Manipura, or the heart chakra, the Ajna, whatever. You know, they're very specific, and so like it could be like a fire hose going through. Then phenomena arise through different. I don't always make sense of like maybe the throat chakras, you know, associated with self-expression and stuff like that. Doesn't always necessarily, I cannot always make the connection between the experience and the chakra, but for sure, I mean, it's absolutely...
Well, interesting you say that, because I did feel a connection, because when after that very night where I was like, doing that, the next day I went to work and we didn't have a lot of staff, and I was expressing myself with a passion and a kind of like a presence of mind. Like I wasn't angry, but I was just like, we need more stuff, you know. It's just like, and that's not me, that's not my, I've never spoke like that before, and so I was just like, what the hell is going on, you know, because suddenly you don't recognize yourself, but everyone was just like, yeah, you're right, you know. So that was extraordinary, but the energy felt, it just felt very clean. It wasn't aggressive energy, it was just firm and
I remember you mentioning that, because people responded really well to it, so it wasn't wasn't an attack, it wasn't aggression, it was something else. It was, like you say, some sort of benign anger, like... Exactly that. And the interesting thing is, there was kids around at the time, and I was quite loud, and I was worried that I was going to freak them out, and they were just looking, and they were looking at me with this kind of wakefulness, with this kind of force, slightly, you know. I think they knew that I was on their side in that moment. They kind of knew that I had their backs, you know what I mean? And there was no fear at all in them. They didn't freak out. They were just very still and just staring at me. So there seems to be a connection. But no, I'm like you. I used to be like, you know, I was the last person to go around going, oh, you know, my chakras are misaligned. You know, I couldn't, you know. But now you sort of have to. It makes me think of Jesus in the temple getting angry. I don't know. Was it like that? Like, getting angry at everybody selling stuff in the temple and you know, in his father's house. But I wonder, what's that kind of energy? Maybe. You know, because it's an interesting phenomenon. That kind of. Did you feel anything, or was it unemotional, or was there feeling behind it? But it was passion. And I use that word a lot for this energy, because it feels really passionate. Whatever's happening, like a clean passion. I don't know, but yes. So it wasn't. There was no real anger to it or aggression. It was just. It feels like the kind of energy that can get things done. It also feels to me like the energy that you'd want from a drug, but it's not quite. Again, it's clean because it's. That's right. it's really full. It's like almost the same awakening energy, I guess, but it makes this kind of worldly life appeal by comparison, because everything is amplified, everything,
Yes.
all those experiences, you know, when you're seeing a divine interpretation of like an inner sound. I've had birds chirping. They're divine birds. They're supernatural birds. They're not just chirp. Like so everything's just way more beautiful, way more intense without the emotion that normally goes with intensity. So it is just that stillness and intensity at the same time, passion, as you say. Like it's interesting.
It's an interesting comparison, because I've done a lot of drugs and psychedelics and things like that, and there is you do like this thing comes up the spine, and there is a connect. I mean, it does feel like coming up on something, you know. So instead of coming up on a psychedelic throughout the course of an evening, it's kind of like coming up on something for the rest of your physical life. It kind of feels like that a little bit, you know. And, I think you were talking earlier about this being the energy of as well as a life force energy, a connection to death as well.
A connection to
To the after death realm.
The expansion. Because I think it was kind of listening to some Bonnie Greenwell talking about people end of life and how the energy expands for the soul to leave or whatever. You know, obviously this stuff is unknowable, but it seems to me that makes sense, because it seems to have the kind of colour, the intensity, the supernaturalness of NDE kind of experiences, and I seem to be getting those more frequently recently.
Do you get them, do you think, when you're stressed, or is it particular something brings them on, or they just hit you randomly?
I think in periods of you know, I'm going through a period now it's quite unsettling. Life is quite difficult, and so just periods where there's an absolute surrender and a kind of, I just don't care really whether I wake up in the morning. You know, it's kind of like that, not like a suicidal thing, but just a kind of,
giving up.
And so what seems to happen is, I can feel the energy rise when it'll hit me either in a chakra or just flood in. Or last night I had another hell experience. I don't know an awful lot of detail about it, and I'm not going to tell you the detail I do remember.
Fair enough.
For certain reasons. But so it just seems, it's like in those moments, maybe also that genuineness as well. Like, I don't know, it just seems to respond very, very easily to how I'm thinking and feeling, and what's going on. So it's, you know, for me, it's because the energy's always there, but for it to rise up, to give rise to experience, it seems to need, like I say, some sort of...
I think that's the difference between me and yours. Sounds very much like it almost comes to help you out when you're kind of on the edge, you know, you're a little bit, maybe there's a lot of suffering or confusion and sort of teetering, and then it just comes out to sort of save the day, or
or too much excitement.
Too much excitement.
Oh yeah, or whatever. So like sometimes it's come in and it's just started like I guess belly breathing, which I've never actually done, but I realized like it was obviously just getting rid of tension. It was just like you know.
Yeah,
like,
I get a lot of that.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Expiration. It goes on and on and on, like to the point where you think I should finish expiring, and just you know, even if I sit down, you know, on the bog or something, you know, or in my bed, you know, it's just like it just keeps going and going. I don't know if it feels like it's getting rid of toxins or something like that. Yeah,
and tension as well. Like it seems to want, if it wants anything, like some kind of back to the homeostasis, back to equilibrium, like it. But instead of having like a stressful evening, like where things are really bad, it transforms it into something really beautiful, like and really interesting, which is much more entertaining.
Funny you're talking about the belly as well, because I think the solar plexus chakra is somewhere around there, and I had, I was a real pushover when I was young and in my teenagers, you know, I was really self-conscious and a lot of tightness, and I think the belly is in there. It's really, they say it's your second brain, doesn't it? And it was kind of like a
Yeah,
brain
yeah.
down there, and it's a really intimate area. And I think, and you know, sometimes if you put your hand on someone's belly, it's really sort of, you have to trust that person, you know, because it feels really intimate, and it's the kind of area that when we feel self-conscious, we kind of close off, you know, just sit like that. So,
Yeah.
and when I was doing one of these solar plexus healings, and I'm wondering now if the source of all this acid coming up is that area just needs a lot of love, basically. So I did this sound healing online, and because I just felt like this bile coming up. I was walking back from work, and I just felt like, what's going on here? It's like, I did like a thing. And the moment that music started, my stomach started going, and there was like emotion coming up. Not emotion that I could connect to anything specific or any specific trauma, but it was about 25 minutes or half an hour of just volcanic, bubbly belly blowing out. It was really uncomfortable, like just really sickly. And then when it ended, there was about half an hour of burping, just lying on my bed going yeah, so I don't know. I wonder if this chest thing is connected to that sense of worthlessness. I felt worthless.
Right, okay.
As a kid and a teenager. And they say that's your centre of your self-worth. Again, I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah,